All right, picture this. It's April 28th, 1901. An Austrian steamship slips quietly out of Istanbul. It makes a few brief stops, Izmir, Alexandria, navigates through the Red Sea, and then sets a fiercely determined course for the Far East. But this is no ordinary voyage. Literally, the moment that ship leaves the harbor, Western agents and envoys all across the globe are thrown into a state of absolute frenzy. So welcome to today's Explainer, where we're bypassing all those usual dry geopolitical pleasantries to jump straight into a real-life, century-old historical spy thriller. We're going to let the raw documents and the hard data tell the story today because, honestly, the facts of this secret mission are way more captivating than fiction. And this historical footprint actually matters a lot because it sets the very foundation for the complex global relationships and soft power strategies we see playing out even today. Well, before that steamship even had a chance to dock in China, the panic had fully set in. Check out this encrypted message sent by Western envoys in Beijing, who were just frantically wiring their home capitals. They warned that the, quote, tricky Sultan in Istanbul had started up new maneuvers to try and pull the Muslims in China onto his side. This sets the stage so perfectly. It reveals the intense, almost claustrophobic paranoia of the Western colonial powers at the time. They were watching the Ottoman ruler, Sultan Abdülhamid II, like hawks, absolutely terrified of what he might be orchestrating in the shadows of the Far East.
Okay, let's dive right into this mission. When the steamship finally pulls into Shanghai after a grueling month-long journey, the region basically erupts in celebration. Huge crowds of Chinese Muslims rush to the port. The Ottoman delegation is led by a brilliant, high-ranking palace officer named Enver Pasha. It's a really tight 9-person consular delegation. Outwardly, Enver Pasha, using his fluent French and just immense charisma, tells everyone they're simply there to deliver messages of peace from the Sultan. But the colonial powers? Yeah, they aren't buying it for a second. For the next 4 months, Enver Pasha and his team are essentially stalked. They're surrounded by a suffocating circle of Western agents who cut their ties and watch literally every single move they make.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer diplomatic genius of the Sultan's strategy. It was built on a perfect contradiction. There was the cover story, and then there was the true mission. Back in 1901, during the highly violent Boxer Rebellion in China, anti-colonial protesters had actually killed the German ambassador. So the German Emperor, Kaiser Wilhelm II, personally asked the Ottoman Sultan to send a delegation to help calm the unrest, especially among the Muslim protesters. And Sultan Abdülhamid played this perfectly. He obviously didn't want to send the military and anger Chinese Muslims, but he really needed to maintain relations with Germany, so he agrees to send this peaceful delegation. But underneath that diplomatic cover, the true mission was quietly unfolding. Investigate the region, establish a pan-Islamic alliance, and develop powerful soft power relations with Chinese Muslims to directly counter Western colonization.
To really understand why the Sultan risked this daring mission, you just have to look at the demographics of 1901. The entire population of the Ottoman Empire at the time was roughly 30 million people. But in China, out of a total population of about 500 million, there were an estimated 50 to 60 million Chinese Muslims. Let that sink in for a second. There were roughly double the amount of Muslims living in China than there were in the entire Ottoman Empire. For a Sultan, calculating that support from the global Islamic world was absolutely crucial to surviving against colonizing Western nations, China wasn't just an opportunity, it was a geopolitical goldmine.
And trust me, the West knew exactly what was at stake here. This intercepted message, sent on June 4, 1901, by the French ambassador to Peking back to Paris, proves they were totally onto the Sultan's geopolitical chess game. The ambassador explicitly warns that the Ottoman delegation's presence could trigger pan-Islamic movements in heavily colonized neighboring regions, particularly in Yunnan. He essentially begs his government to undercover Istanbul's true intentions. Enver Pasha was out there distributing declarations in Chinese from the Sultan and having sermons read in his name. It was an absolute masterclass in psychological warfare, and the French were sweating.
After Enver Pasha's initial scouting mission wraps up, the Sultan doesn't just stop there. No, he doubles down. He secretly dispatches one of his favorite men, whose sources say was actually his top detective or sleuth, a guy named Muhammad Ali. Ali's dossier reads like something straight out of an espionage novel. He operates deep undercover in the inner regions of China, disguised as an, quote, erudite tourist in religious clothing. Being fluent in both Arabic and English gives him unparalleled access. He's out there distributing financial aid directly from Istanbul, convincing local families to send their kids to the Ottoman Empire for education, and ensuring that a constant stream of secret intelligence reports makes its way back to his ruler. It's during this deep undercover work that Muhammad Ali makes the single most crucial contact of the entire operation, Imam Wang Haren. And this is where we're shifting from pure espionage to a truly profound cultural connection.
Imam Wang was a highly influential Chinese Muslim scholar, remembered by history as an activist and a real unifying bridge. Before this point, Islamic theological schools in China only offered education in Arabic. But Imam Wang, he was a modernizer. He strongly advocated for including Chinese culture and language in these schools. So Muhammad Ali tells Imam Wang all about the Ottomans' grand projects for the Islamic world. And boom, a powerful historic alliance is born. Let's move to and see how this builds, because the groundwork laid by these spies and scholars created a bridge with just astonishing speed. In 1901, we have Enver Pasha's initial high-tension mission. Just 5 years later, in 1906, Imam Wang embarks on the Hajj to Mecca and then travels directly to Istanbul. There, he is warmly and personally hosted by Sultan Abdülhamid II. They discuss modern education and the Sultan's ultimate dream of an Ottoman university right in Peking. Wang promises his absolute support. The very next year, 1907, the Sultan dispatches 2 Ottoman teachers to Peking, and by 1908, the seemingly impossible is achieved. Peking Hamidiye University officially opens its doors. So the crucial point here is exactly how the Sultan cemented this relationship during Imam Wang's visit to Istanbul. He knew that to build a lasting bridge, he needed to provide the actual tools for education. Noting a lack of Islamic masterpieces in China, the Sultan absolutely did not let Imam Wang leave empty-handed. He gifted him over 1,000 books. And keeping with strict Islamic traditions, you wouldn't find drawings of people or human figures in any of these texts. Instead, they were filled with breathtaking calligraphy, intricate geometric patterns, and profound theology. This wasn't just a polite gesture, it was a massive transfer of knowledge and soft power meant to be shared with scholars across China to conceptually link these two massive empires. And to put the sheer dedication of this mission into perspective, just consider this number: 10,000. That is the incredible distance, in kilometers, traveled by the 2 Turkish teachers, Muallim Ali Reza Effendi and Muallim Brusali Hafiz Hassan Effendi. On the Sultan's direct orders, they traveled 10,000 kilometers from Istanbul all the way to Peking. When they finally arrived, Imam Wang took them to the historic Niujie Mosque, rallied the local Chinese Muslims, and secured the mosque's gardens and an empty building to construct their brand new halls of learning. The result of all this groundwork was a monumental victory. In 1908, Peking Hamidiye University opened amidst literal tears and prayers. It successfully brought Chinese Muslims closer to Istanbul, exactly as the Sultan had envisioned. This was the ultimate culmination of a brilliant soft power strategy. I mean, operating right under the noses of highly suspicious Western colonial powers, starting from a secretive delegation and a disguised detective, the Ottoman Empire had successfully built a functioning, physical institution, cementing ties with a society thousands of miles away. It's just wild to think about. However, as we know, the 20th century was notoriously unforgiving to these kinds of grand visions. Following the timeline, the decline was pretty steady. At the end of 1908, for reasons that remain historically pretty unclear, the Turkish teachers actually left China. Local Muslims stepped up and took over the administration, but over time, due to a severe lack of professors, it transitioned into just a primary school. Then came the massive societal shifts of the 1949 Maoist Revolution, which completely put an end to Arabic and religious education there, mandating only Chinese. And eventually, a severe lack of funding forced the school to close its doors completely. But history has a really funny way of preserving its most important artifacts. Fast forward exactly a century from the university's opening to the year 2008. The Beijing Olympics spurred this massive wave of urban renewal and preservation across the city. This incredible global event actually led to the beautiful restoration of the 1,000-year-old Niujie Mosque in the Shuangmu district of Beijing. And right along with it, the surviving, historically rich buildings of Hamidiye University standing right there in its gardens. And this brings us to its breathtaking legacy today. While some of the Ottoman motifs have worn away with time, the stunning Islamic architectural style, again, notably beautifully adorned with patterns and calligraphy rather than drawings of people, remains completely distinct. Today, there are an estimated 200,000 Muslims living in Beijing. During holidays and Friday prayers, the massive 6,000 square meter Niujie Mosque gets so packed that it's literally impossible to find space. So where do the overflow crowds go to pray? They crowd right into the beautifully restored, once-empty lesson halls of Hamidiye University. For those who actually know the history, who know exactly how this building came to be, it is a permanent, physical stamp of Ottoman-Chinese relations that genuinely brings people to tears to this day. Which leaves us with this final thought. We started with an Austrian steamship, encrypted panic from Western agents, and an undercover detective, and we ended with a restored university hall sheltering worshippers a full century later. So, How does a century-old school, built from a secret spy mission, reshape our understanding of modern global diplomacy and soft power? It shows us that true influence isn't always built with armies or weapons. Sometimes it's built with 1,000 books, a shared vision, and the incredible courage to travel 10,000 kilometers into the complete unknown. I really hope this explainer has sparked your curiosity to look a little closer at the hidden histories shaping our world. Thank you so much for diving into this with me. Keep questioning the history you think you know.